The chrome elevator buttons gleamed as I watched my parents fidget in their designer outfits. My father's Rolex caught the light as he checked the time for the third time in 2 minutes. My mother's Chanel perfume filled the small space as she adjusted her pearl necklace, a nervous habit she'd had for as long as I could remember. "Olivia, darling," my mother said with that familiar condescending tone, "are you sure you want to show us your workspace? We could just have lunch at the club instead." I smiled, remembering all the times they'd refused to visit my tiny office over the past 3 years. But today was different. Today they'd practically invited themselves, worried about their precious family reputation after hearing rumors about my financial struggles from their country club friends. "You'll want to see this, Mom," I assured her, pressing the button marked T for Penthouse. "Penthouse?" My father scoffed. "I think you hit the wrong button, sweetheart. Your little tech company surely can't afford." The elevator smoothly ascended the Sterling Tower, one of the most prestigious buildings in the financial district. 3 years ago, when I left my father's investment firm to start my own tech company, they'd been horrified. "Madison and Sons has been our family legacy for generations," Dad had roared. The fact that I was a daughter, not a son, had never seemed to bother him until I wanted to run things my way. "Remember that startup I told you about?" I asked, watching the floor numbers climb. "The one you said would never work? That ridiculous AI investment platform?" Dad chuckled. "Don't tell me you're still throwing money at that pipe dream." Mom touched my arm. "Honey, there's still a position waiting for you at the firm. Junior VP, your father says. Much more suitable." The elevator timed at floor 15, where a young executive entered. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Miss Sterling," he exclaimed. "I didn't expect to see you today. The board presentation was incredible yesterday." My parents froze. Mom's hand dropped from my arm. "Thanks, Mike. How's the new trading algorithm performing?" "Revolutionary, ma'am. We've already had calls from 3 major banks wanting to license it." He got off 2 floors later, leaving my parents in stunned silence. I could almost see the wheels turning in their heads. Sterling Tower. "Miss Sterling. Board presentation. Olivia." My father's voice had lost its patronizing edge. "What exactly is going on?" The elevator continued its smooth ascent. "Remember when I said I had an idea that would change the investment industry? An AI system that could predict market trends better than any human analyst. That impossible idea that would never work?" He quoted his own words back to me. "Yes, that one." I watched the numbers. 45, 46, 47. The one that now handles investments worth over $50 billion. $50 billion? Mom whispered. "But that's not why I brought you here today," I continued as the elevator approached the top floor. "You see, when my company took off, I needed a suitable headquarters. And this building, well." The elevator timed one final time. "Let's just say I got a good deal when I bought it." The doors opened to reveal a stunning penthouse office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Modern art adorned the walls, and a sleek desk faced the impressive view. But what caught their attention was the massive sign behind my desk: "Sterling Innovations, where AI meets investment." "Welcome to my building," I said quietly, stepping out of the elevator. My mother's perfectly maintained composure cracked. "Your building? All 60 floors of it?" I walked to my desk, enjoying the sound of my heels clicking on the marble floor. "Would you like a tour? We can start with my tiny office here in the penthouse." Dad's face had turned an interesting shade of red. But Sterling Tower is owned by Sterling Innovations," I completed for him. "My company. Named after Grandma Sterling, by the way. The one who always told me to think bigger than anyone expected." "But that's impossible," he sputtered. "You've only been gone 3 years." 3 years, 4 months and 17 days, I corrected. "Would you like to see our latest quarterly reports? They're quite interesting." A knock at the door interrupted us. My executive assistant, Jessica, entered with a tablet in hand. "Miss Sterling, sorry to interrupt, but Goldman Sachs is on line 1 about the merger, and the mayor's office confirmed your lunch meeting tomorrow." "Give me 5 minutes, Jessica," I said, watching my parents try to process the situation, and push the Goldman Sachs call to 3 p.m. After Jessica left, my father collapsed into one of the leather chairs facing my desk. My mother remained standing, her eyes darting around the office as if searching for signs this was all an elaborate prank. The merger they're talking about on CNBC? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. That's you. I sat behind my desk enjoying the role reversal. For years I'd sat on the other side of his desk, listening to him explain why my ideas were too risky, too innovative, too different from how things are done. Yes, that merger. We're acquiring Thomson Financial's AI division. Rather fitting considering they rejected my job application 4 years ago. I pulled up some figures on my holographic display. Would you like to see the numbers? Mom finally found her voice. But at the Christmas party you said you were still figuring things out. You were wearing that same old blazer. The one you said made me look like a junior associate? I smiled. I wore it on purpose. Just like I kept my old apartment, drove my used car and worked from that small office on the 15th floor. I wanted to succeed on my own terms, not because of the sterling name. But why? Dad demanded, his business instincts finally kicking in. Why hide your success? Do you know how many connections we could have provided? The doors we could have opened. I leaned forward. That's exactly why, Dad. Every door at Madison & Sons was opened by you. Every client came through your connections. I wanted to build something that was entirely mine. But surely after the first year when you started succeeding... Mom trailed off. You mean when I started really succeeding? I stood up and walked to the window. Let me tell you what happened a year into my venture. Our AI made its first major market prediction, a shift nobody else saw coming. We made our initial investors a 500% return in 1 week. I turned back to face them. That same week I overheard you at the club, telling the Hamiltons how worried you were about my failed experiment. How I'd come crawling back to the firm eventually. Dad had the grace to look embarrassed. We were concerned. No, I cut him off. You were embarrassed. Your daughter, the Harvard Business School graduate, was playing with computers instead of following the family path. So I decided to keep playing my role as your unsuccessful child while building something revolutionary. I pressed a button and the wall of screens behind me lit up, displaying real-time market data, AI predictions, and global investment flows. Our AI doesn't just predict markets, it understands them. It sees patterns humans can't comprehend. Every major financial institution in the world now uses our technology. I paused, letting that sink in. Including Madison & Sons. Dad's head snapped up. What? Check your firm's trading software. See who provides it. I enjoyed watching him fumble for his phone. You've actually been using my technology for the past year. Your recent record profits? You're welcome. That's impossible, he muttered, but his face told me he was already connecting the dots. The Sterling algorithm, that's named after me, yes. Your chief technology officer was quite impressed when he found out who he'd been dealing with. He's been dying to tell you, but I made secrecy a condition of our contract. Mom sank into the other chair, her perfect posture crumbling. All those dinner parties where we tried to set you up with successful men? Like Peter Thomson? I laughed. Whose company I'm now buying? Yes, those were particularly amusing evenings. A soft chime interrupted us. Jessica's voice came through the intercom. Miss Sterling, the board members are arriving for the quarterly meeting. And Mr. Thompson from the Times is here for your Forbes cover interview. The silence in my office was broken by the distant sound of helicopters. Probably the business news channels covering our merger announcement. My father was still staring at his phone, scrolling through article after article about Sterling innovations. My mother had given up all pretense of composure, her perfectly styled hair now slightly disheveled as she ran her fingers through it repeatedly. The board is waiting, I said, standing up. You're welcome to stay and watch if you'd like to see how your little girl runs a multi-billion-dollar company. Olivia, Dad's voice cracked. The market capitalization of your company, it's larger than Madison & Sons. 10 times larger actually, I corrected him. As of this morning's trading. The boardroom doors opened, revealing a stunning view of the city skyline and a table full of the most powerful people in finance. My parents followed me in, looking shell-shocked as CEOs and financial leaders greeted me with respect and deference. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the room, you might recognize my guests. Robert and Diana Sterling of Madison & Sons. They're here to observe. I caught several knowing smiles around the table. My secret had been well kept in high society, but within the financial world my identity had been known for months. Now regarding the Thompson acquisition. For the next hour, my parents watched in stunned silence as I led discussions about billion-dollar decisions, technological innovations and global market strategy. Their daughter, who they thought needed career guidance, was directing the future of global finance. As the board members filed out congratulating me on the merger, my father finally spoke up. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked softly. "All this time we thought." "You thought what you wanted to think," I replied, gathering my papers. "That a woman couldn't succeed in finance without following the traditional path. That innovation was too risky. That AI was just a trend." "We were wrong," Mom whispered. "So terribly wrong. The funny thing is," I continued, walking to the window, "I tried to tell you. Remember that dinner 3 years ago? I explained how AI could revolutionize investment banking. You both laughed and changed the subject to the Hamilton Sons' new partnership." "I remember," Dad admitted. "I didn't understand half of what you were saying." "No, you didn't try to understand. There's a difference." The intercom buzzed. "Ms. Sterling, the Times interview." "Give me a moment, Jessica." I turned to my parents. "I have a cover interview to do. But before you go, there's something else you should know." I handed them a folder. Inside was an offer to buy Madison and Sons. "You're buying our company?" Dad's hands trembled as he read the documents. "Offering to market value plus 20%. Your choice." I straightened my jacket. "You can either join Sterling Innovations as a subsidiary, modernize with our technology and thrive, or continue competing against us with outdated methods." "You'd buy your own father's company?" Mom gasped. "Business isn't personal, remember? Isn't that what you always taught me, Dad?" He looked up from the papers and for the first time I saw something new in his eyes. Respect. "When do you need an answer?" he asked, sounding more like a businessman than a father. "Take your time. We can discuss it over dinner. At my penthouse apartment in the building next door. The one you never visited because you thought I couldn't afford decent housing." My mother's eyes widened again. "You own that building too?" "Among others." I smiled. "Amazing what you can buy when your AI predicts market trends with 99.9% accuracy." Jessica appeared at the door. "The photographer is ready, Ms. Sterling." "Coming." I turned to my parents. "The choice is yours. Join the future I'm building or stay in the past. Either way, I've proven what I set out to prove, that success doesn't have to follow the expected path." As they walked to the elevator, still clutching the folder, my father paused. "That Christmas party," he said, "when you were wearing the old blazer, you had already bought this building, hadn't you?" "Yes. I signed the papers that morning." He shook his head, a mixture of amazement and regret crossing his face. "We've missed so much of your journey." "You did," I agreed. "But maybe now you can be part of what comes next." As the elevator doors closed on their stunned faces, I straightened my shoulders and headed to the photo shoot. Tomorrow's headlines would reveal my success to the world, but today's revelation to my parents felt more significant somehow. Sometimes the biggest success isn't in the billions you make or the buildings you own, but in the moments when those who doubted you finally see you for who you really are. As I posed for what would become the cover of Forbes, I smiled, thinking of my tiny first office on the 15th floor. I still keep it unchanged as a reminder that every empire starts with a single room and a dream that others call impossible.